I have received my PR approval, I have declared my presence in Canada, but still I am waiting for COPR for 2 months, 3 months, and still waiting and waiting. Welcome back to the channel, guys. In this video, we're going to talk about delays in receiving your E-COPR and what can you do about it. In this channel, we talk about everything related to Canadian immigration. So if you've not yet, subscribe to the channel for latest updates. You can get in touch with us, www.effizient.ca. Phone number is 226-774-9168. A lot of you guys, a lot of the immigrants right now who had applied for permanent residence have received their approvals. They have received that portal request email. You have already declared your presence in Canada. However, still you've been waiting for 2.5, 3 months to receive your electronic confirmation of permanent residence. First off, until you receive that COPR, you are not yet a permanent resident of Canada. So even though you've received an approval, even though you have declared your presence in Canada, you have initiated the virtual landing process, until Immigration Canada issues you the COPR, your status is still what it was before your PR application was approved, which is if you hold a work permit, you're still a worker. If you hold a study permit, you're still a student. You have to wait until the COPR is issued for your status to change from student or worker or visitor to a permanent resident of Canada. These days, we've seen that IRCC is taking a long time to issue the COPR after you do your virtual landing declaration, and that is causing a lot of grief for a lot of applicants. A lot of it is just anxiety because you've been waiting so long for this process to complete, and once you received that golden email and you did all the procedures after that, you would expect it to be really quick for you to receive the final confirmation of PR and for you to move on with your lives. However, recently IRCC has been taking a very long time to issue the COPRs. In such cases, for some of you, if you need to travel outside of Canada, this creates a hassle, this creates confusion, and this creates certain complications for you. So the question is, can you travel outside Canada? If you travel outside Canada, would you have issues returning back to Canada? So let's first answer the first question. Can you travel outside Canada after declaring that you're inside Canada? The answer is yes. The declaration was done at the time when you were present in Canada. Now, if IRCC takes month, 2 month, 3 months to give you the E-COPR, you're not bound by law or regulations to stay inside Canada. People need to travel for business, for work, for personal reasons. You're free to travel, you can travel, and all you need to travel outside of the country is a passport and authorization to go into the country that you're going into, and that's it. So traveling outside of Canada is not at all a problem. However, the question arises about coming back into Canada. So what are the different possible scenarios when you have done the declaration about being inside Canada and later on you have to travel outside Canada? What are the different scenarios when you are to return back to Canada? Let's talk about that. Number one scenario is that you have not yet received your COPR. In that case, you use the status that you had in Canada, could be say a work permit and a visa stamp, and you use that to come back to Canada. No problems at all. That is your valid status. You have not received a COPR, so you are not a permanent resident yet, and using those documents, you come back into Canada, not a problem. Number two is that you are outside Canada and your COPR is issued while you are outside Canada. What can you do, or what happens in this scenario? When you're issued a COPR, essentially your status changes from whatever it was before, for example, a worker or a student, to a permanent resident. Now that means that it's possible that the status documents such as a work permit or a study permit that you held becomes invalid from that day onwards. Also, the visa stamp in your passport becomes invalid from there on because you're no longer a temporary resident, and hence the travel as a permanent resident is done using a permanent resident card and not that visa stamp. In such a case, when you're trying to board a flight back to Canada after you received your COPR, it's possible that the stamp, the visa stamp on your passport is no longer valid. The airline sees that and does not let you board. Now, it's also possible that you go to board, there are no complications at all. You board the flight, you come to Canada at the border, you tell the immigration officer that you're a permanent resident and you enter without problems. However, it is possible because all these countries and airlines do share information under the Advanced Passenger Information System, which is essentially government and airlines talking to each other to verify passengers. And under that system, it's possible that they see that your visa, which was a temporary visa that you held to Canada, is no longer valid because now you have become a permanent resident of Canada. And at this point, you are going to use your PR card for travel instead of those temporary resident documents. Now, in this case, what can you do in order to return back to Canada? You have 3 different options, and let's talk about all of them one by one. Number 1 option is that you are outside Canada, you receive your COPR, the PR card is mailed to your address in Canada, and somehow you get a hold of that PR card while you're outside Canada. Now, you take that PR card, use it to travel back to Canada, no problems at all, you enter Canada. Scenario number 2 is that you don't have the PR card, but you apply for a permanent resident travel document outside Canada. You use that and you use that to travel back to Canada. Not a problem at all, easy solution. While the first 2 are good solutions, they might take more time, and there's a third solution which would be practical, but it does require having a visa to the United States of America. If you have a visa to the United States of America, this solution becomes the easiest one. All you need to do is board a flight to the US, and for that you only use your US visa, come to the border state and cross the land border in a private vehicle or in your or by foot. When you are crossing the land border, the officer will check in their system that you are a permanent resident of Canada. You don't need a PR card, nothing is required in that case. Only your COPR and your passport is enough, and you would be granted entry into Canada as a permanent resident. In this case, you won't have to wait for your PR card. You won't have to apply for the permanent resident travel document and wait for it to be processed. You can come back instantly to Canada. So to summarize, if you never receive your COPR while you're traveling, you travel back to Canada on your old status, not a problem, and you would have no issues at all. If you receive your COPR while you're outside Canada, then either you need your PR card to travel back, or you need a permanent resident travel document to travel back. Keep in mind, you may also be able to use whatever travel stamp or visa stamp you had in your passport, but that might cause complications if the airline denies you boarding because they see that the visa is not longer valid in the IRCC's database. And the third solution here would be for you to board a flight to the US border and cross the US-Canada land border using your COPR without your PR card. So if you are one of those candidates who are lucky enough to receive the approval and you have already declared your presence in Canada, however, being unlucky, you are not receiving your COPR because of IRCC delays, you can travel. Don't worry. If you have emergencies or even if you need to travel, you can travel. There is nothing in law, there is nothing in regulation that bars you from traveling outside Canada during that time. However, just be mindful that while you try to return to Canada, there might be these slight complications, and in this video, I've shared all the solutions that you have at your disposal when you're trying to return back to Canada. I hope you find this helpful. I hope this relieves anxiety and it helps you process different scenarios that you might be in when you travel outside of Canada. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel, and stay tuned for more information and for more immigration related videos. Thank you.